you so much for taking some time and talking with us. I really appreciate it.
Pleasure.
I was hoping to talk a little bit about, the new album and also about some of what you do and, what the Maniacs are up to. And first, I'd like to just tell you that I just listened to Twice Told Tales. It's such a beautiful album. I was floored.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
Yeah, I love it. It treats, those like traditional songs with respect, but there's also a great sense of play with them too. What was the inspiration for the album? It's really kind of off the beaten path.
Well, I've been playing this kind of music for a while on my own, and actually John Lombardo and I, many years, have played a number of these tracks that are on the CD, and performing, 10,000 Maniacs shows, there's a point where, it gets quite loud in volume, and then we kind of strip it down, and what I did was just come out and start to do that Song of Wandering Angus a cappella, and it just really captured the whole mood of the tension of the audience, but it really works nicely, and Dennis Drew was saying we should try to do an album of this music because, obviously playing violin and viola, that already is sort of in my ballpark playing Celtic music, and my vocal styles. I've always liked those songs, and they're from quite a while ago, but they still resonate now, and so it was really kind of a natural fit, and also a very fun project to do. When you see something that's working with an audience, and then also just we've written a lot of songs together, and just taking that format, and it was very easy for us to say, yeah, let's try it, because it was a good fit, and also I think we wanted to try something different. We want to keep writing music and doing it in our folk rock style, but it's fun. It's interesting to go back to these songs that were kind of the inspiration for a lot of groups way back when, like Pentangle and Fairport Convention and Posse Band, etc. But to take, we've always wanted to do something like this. I think it's always been something that has been in my mind with the band, and certainly bringing John Lombardo in to kind of oversee it was really helpful because he has a great respect and love for that British folk rock,
It seems like there's almost like a dark quality to it too, almost like a haunted quality.
Well, it's really, they're very, a lot of them are reflective of intense moments in life. There's death, love. We have these in all sorts of songs, but they're very sparse, very scaled down, so that you really hear what's going on with the lyrics, and you hear the beauty of the melodic lines. But sometimes with a lot of instrumentation, things can get lost, a bit, or it's harder to find.
So how does that process work for you guys? So you come up with a handful of songs that you think you might like to explore, and what happens with it from there? Like, how does it get into the band? How does it get worked out?
Well, what we did was, for example, the start and finish of the album is the Lady Mary Ramsey tracks, which I had just stumbled upon a few years ago. I was, I Googled my name, and you never know what you're going to find, of course. It's scary, but I was pleasantly surprised. I go, oh my gosh, there were two fiddle tunes that were written, who knows when. They were written a long time ago, if that's to say it in a very layperson's terms. But I think they were probably written in the 1700s or even earlier. Lady Mary Ramsey, this one was the S-E-Y, which is the way my family spells it, and then this S-A-Y. But they were there, and I thought, well, that would be really neat. They're two different styles, and so that, I brought that on my own to with a collection of songs. And then with the other songs that were more band-oriented, we just got together and played. It sort of is just the way we do things. Like, for example, when for Love Among the Ruins we had the hit Was More Than This, and that was, I remember just casually saying, let's try that song. I always loved it. And then so everybody just brings whatever part they think they want to play, and we kind of piece it together, and it always, for the most part, it always seems to fall into place, you know?
That's interesting. And I mean, there's such a long history, too, with the band, right? I mean, the lineup has changed. People have come and gone, come back. Some have passed. Do you think the audience, you know, has been aware of these lineup changes, or do you think, like, the fame of the band's name kind of makes all that transparent?
It's interesting, you know, in the day and age of being able to really find out a lot of information. There's a lot of skewed information too, so it's odd, you know. And I think that certainly there are people that absolutely know everything that's going on, you know, that are followed every element of change or whatever we've done, and certainly with the Facebook and with tweeting and blogging and all that stuff, but it's easier to follow. And then I think that there's sometimes people that know the name and that era, you know, that because so much time has passed, you hear bands from that era, and there's just a sense of like, oh yeah, let's go see that, because it reminds them of, you know, the songs they used to dance to or listen to in college or whenever, you know.
Yeah. What genre would you put 10,000 Maniacs in today?
Well, I always think of it as folk rock pop. I guess that's kind of the way I see it, you know, because it has a hybrid of a lot of different styles, and certainly, like in the early days, you know, the band had a folk rock influence. There was the reggae, there's punk, you know, it's all those things kind of that were brought together. And I, you know, going back to what you're saying about those people going to shows, I think also there's such a sense of people, older people going, and it's almost like you see, you know, birds of a feather. You're with the people that, you know, you see familiar faces. Meaning they may not be, you don't know them, but they're about the same age group, or, you know, you share the experience, and that's kind of a bonding.
You know, you have a lot of dates coming up, some very intimate settings too. These must be exciting venues to play, like the City Winery.
Yeah, they are. Certainly, it's always great to go to a major city, you know. And we've been at City Winery. I think it's like our fifth year coming back. We've been returning there, and so it's nice to be asked back, and nice to be back at a place, you know. Well, you know that stage, and you know, usually we'll see about a number of people, you know, returning to the shows. So that's pretty neat. And it's always great to be able to be in a stage where you can hear yourself, you know.
Yes.
That's pretty nice.
And I mean, you guys are veteran performers, and you've certainly toured, you know, for pretty much every significant stage that should have been toured. And does touring still hold the same level of excitement for you?
Yeah, it is. You know, it's really, you know, it's an honor to be able to do this, to be able to make music. I find it's cathartic. It's interesting, you know. And I think it's we all, as a band, we really enjoy doing it and expressing, you know, our creativity, sharing it with the audience, and seeing that they like it. That's good. That's a good thing when they like it. It
is, and you're right. It's a rare thing these days. You know, there aren't a lot of artists that really get to do that. Just sort of explore their creativity, and you know, like an album like this. You know, Twice Told Tales. I mean, probably not too many bands could have pulled it off and actually you know, had it released. So yeah, it must feel great.
Well, it does, because all the elements, you know, everybody who's on the CD, you know, we all respect each other and have worked together, and I think that's really what made this project come about, because we all valued each other and our input, and it's something that we wanted to do, and you know, I feel like I studied violin since I was 5 years old, and viola and when I was in college, but that, this type of music really lends itself to strings, and
Yeah.
and really, like, for example, Jeff's guitar work, you can hear beautiful stuff on that he's doing, and you can hear everybody's instruments. And this is keyboards and Jerry's drums and Steve's bass playing, and the guests and John's guitars. So I don't know. We're just happy. I think that's the other thing, when there's not this sense of like the pressure of a CD coming out and it having to be something that in the old days there's more pressure. Now that there's so much hands-on in terms of the artists making their CDs and doing everything,
Yeah. What do you think have been some of the more significant changes in the music industry?
Well, certainly the technological changes, that's without that's there. And there was a time when you listen to the radio, you heard the songs, you go to a record store, you buy the record, it would be there. You knew where to get the product. It wasn't inside some little device,
Uh-huh.
Meaning, like now, there are lots of different ways to connect with the music. It's easy in some ways, but it's more complicated. It's that interesting scenario where we have all these different ways to get information, yet we're not always getting the information. There's all these different ways to contact people, but you don't get a call back.
That's true. Yeah, there's a lot of noise, but not a lot of content sometimes.
Yeah. So I think that the real positive, and then that's the only way to think of it, because that's what we're doing. It's present. Is that we all have access to a lot of stuff, and it's even things that aren't. It would be very hard to find some things in the old days, but now we can with the internet. Like musicians and songs, and there's just a huge world to connect with. But I suppose it's a different way of making a living, because people used to make a lot of money from album, CD sales, etc.
Right.
It's different. That's certainly shifted. So I think there's more emphasis on performing, connecting that way, doing live concerts.
So that's really, you feel that that's really where the where revenue for an artist is generated. It's in the performances. It's not really in the sale of the music anymore.
Well, I think so. I'm not an expert on this, but that it seems that way. And because in the past, people would always bring CDs and sell them at concerts, and I don't think that people are selling as many. And certainly, all these artists that used to sell a lot aren't. If you look at the, but people are still connected because there's free ways to get connected to their music.
Yes.
And that's not a bad thing either. It's just a change.
Uh-huh.
So, but I still value buying a CD that if I really like it, I'll buy it, and I like having that in my hand and looking at the artwork and all that stuff.
It's fun. Yeah, it was even more fun as vinyl in a way. I mean, the quality wasn't as great, obviously, but it was an event.
It was.
New album.
I know, and then you didn't need your glasses to read everything like you do now. Everything's so small.
It's so true.
Oh.
What now live? You play through a lot of treatments on your violin? The violin, I'm sorry.
Well, I have a 5-string electric violin, so it's a viola and a violin. The strings I have as the 4 strings of a violin with a low C string, which is the viola range.
Okay.
So, and our house guy, our sound man, Dave Hone, he'll put some nice little things on it. I always say, make it sound like a Stradivarius or a Madi, in my dreams. But he does very well. So that's kind of what I do. I don't really have a lot of effects and things like that. I prefer as much of a natural sound, like the strength of the natural sound of a beautiful wood instrument.
Yeah. It's true, and the recording sounds great. I mean, the violin sounds, violin viola. What do you call it? Actually, it's a hybrid, right?
Well, on the recording, actually, I'm playing violin and viola. My classical or acoustic, and my older sister Susan Ramsey, she played violin too on the album. And then there's a few songs. I think She Moves Through the Fair, and also Mari's Wedding. I do kind of a jam thing, kind of like, I always think of Dave Swarbrick kind of style, trying to play like that, you know, because he has a really cool sound with his electric. Yeah, so that's...
Yeah. I love the way the album, the headpiece and the tailpiece of it are you know, there's a solo playing. It really sets the mood and then takes you back out again, so...
Thank you.
Yeah. Now, so I guess, you know, there's so much history with 10,000 Maniacs, you know, and I know so much of it has been gone over, and, you know, you've probably talked to death about these things, but when you look back, like, over the years, what are some of the fonder memories or fonder times, you know, where you either found yourself with the band or the band found itself? Does anything really stand out as, you know, like special moments in the history of 10,000 Maniacs for you?
Well, you know, something that I find remarkable, like thinking about now, is when we played USO shows in Kuwait, you know, being there, and it was tent city, you know, like 12 miles from the Iraqi border, praying for troops out there, meeting the troops, and just being on the other side of the world. And this was in 1990, probably 98 or 9. And just that, it's, you know, that experience and saying, wow, that, I was there. How did I do that? You know, how did we do that? How did we, and to see how the, you know, the military really, you know, they're very earnest, and they're, you know, just to be so close to what is going on over there. That stands out in my mind. And then when we played the Clinton inaugural, the second inaugural ball. That
was exciting, right?
Yeah, it was really exciting. And these, you know, just traveling, and, you know, a lot of times I'll meet people, like we'll meet people after the show, and you know, people who are inspired, and, like, for example, there'll be people who tell me that their kids, you know, they want, their kids are taking lessons, violin lessons, and, you know, just sharing music with people, you know, that sort of thing. And so there's a lot of special moments, really.
Yeah.
And seeing people just happy, you know, having fun, and feeling like there's a positive thing going on, you know, vibe, for lack of a better word.
Absolutely.
The other thing I wanted to say about, like, moments that stand out is just being able to travel and see, like, sometimes doing shows and seeing the ocean, being around nature and the beauty, and then going, oh my God, this is so wonderful. Besides human beings, but also seeing just natural beauty is just kind of, it's just inspirational. Seeing the world and seeing how we're, you know, I guess it's like opening one's mind. The travel can do it. It can be frustrating when you're in an airport waiting in line, you know. But, you know, but you can also you see all sides of humanity, I suppose. But but then to say, oh, well, we are all together in this. You know, we're all in it together.
If I were to ask you how you see yourself as an artist, what would you say?
Well, I feel like it's very intuitive. My feelings, like my expression. I kind of feel like, especially when I play my viola, like my viola is like my is sort of my guide for my voice. You know, I mean, what I feel comfortable with, what resonates with me. I love, you know, there's such a, you know, there's this vibration that happens when things are in tune, and when you hear good, nice tone and all that stuff, you know, and of course stories. But you know, I mean, lyrics are profound, you know, lyrics are amazing. I think though with me, I am more like, I hear the melodies and things sort of move me, you know. That's more the nature of the kind of artist I am. It's more of almost like the physiological response to, you hear certain chords and your hair raises on your arms, or that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think when you play strings, I'm not a string player. Although I played violin many years ago, so I kind of know a little bit about what I'm about to say. I hope I don't put my foot in my mouth, but it is very intuitive. Well, you have to hear that note. You have to.
Yeah.
Because there's no definite place to set your finger and say, okay, this is the key. Boom.
Yeah.
And you have to hear it. So, like, did you play the violin or viola, whichever you started with, before you started to sing, or did you sing first?
Well, I probably sang. As a kid, I sang first. We learned we hear. That's the whole concept of like a Suzuki method. Was that babies hear first, then they speak. And of course, I think I had. My mother has a very nice voice. Both my parents have nice speaking voices, and they didn't study music, but they had it in their lives, and we listened to records, and my older sister's a string player, and so I think that was like my foundation. And then when I was 5 years old, I started to play violin, and certainly, I played it for a long time, and there were those moments where things were squeaky and out of tune and everything. I sort of block them out, I think. They come back when I'm teaching kids, though. But, it's something that, you get to a certain point, and then it's like, try to remember, how did you learn how to ride a two-wheeler? When there's that magic that happens,
Right, exactly.
And I think that with playing instruments, with certain level, that kind of happens. And then there's some people who just go off the charts, like, these virtuosos they're just out of this world, They keep going. And, I'm not there, but I can appreciate them,
Well, it's true. There are some people who just adapt to the technical aspects of the instrument in ways that just seem like mind-boggling,
Yeah.
Like, not only how can you play that fast, how can you read it that fast, or how can you memorize it and recite it that fast? But
I know. It's really pretty amazing. It's magical, really. That's the way. I guess I feel like there's a magic in it. Ultimately, there's a magic that happens with music that I really like,
Yeah, and on many levels for different people in different ways, so.
Yeah.
Were you encouraged to go into music, or was it something, did your parents or your guardian, whoever guided you, were they like, no, don't do music, you need to do something else, something more practical?
No. No, I just kept with it, in high school, and then I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, so I thought, well, I'm doing this, so I'm playing my viola, so maybe I'll go to college, and that's what I did. I just took music classes and a lot of liberal arts stuff at Fredonia State, and I was in that town. I grew up there, and I went to college there, so it was just kind of a natural transition. I wasn't really thinking about, I don't know. When I was young, I was just I wasn't thinking about making money. I don't know why. I don't know what I was thinking. Like, well, I'll just do this. I'll do this,
Which is probably why eventually, success at some level came. I think if you go at it with the attitude of got to make money, I've got to make people like this, I've got to make, nothing really comes of it. But when you just sort of, you don't know what you're doing, but you got to do it.
Yeah.
That's sort of where
I know. It is. And then, just knowing, you're well, yeah. And also being around people that I think when you're in a band, when you go through experiences together, they're not always great. I mean, there's sometimes when people don't appreciate what you're doing or whatever, but to have the sense of value to be, how do I say this, to be encouraged by your bandmates saying it's okay, we're okay,
Yeah.
To keep that going, that's very helpful too.
It's like a sense of community, right?
Yeah, I mean everybody goes through that when you it's just the experience. People like you, people don't like you. Sometimes things go well, sometimes they don't. But to have that sense that, well, we're in, you know, and we're in together, and to support each other.
And you're still active with John and Mary, right? Like that's,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you find it challenging to work both bands?
No, not really. I mean, our schedules are pretty. I mean, they seem to work okay, and both, you know, John and Mary and the Valkyries band. We've got some real nice musicians, and we're all local. You know, we're in Buffalo, so we, you know, most of the gigs we do are in the city or surrounding area. You know.
So
it's,
that's beautiful. It sounds like a real blessed life in music. I mean, nice full life in music.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm doing this, but it's, you know, I do teach, and so I get kind of like a lot of different perspectives on things. So, and John Lombardi will be joining us at City Winery and some of the shows, so that'll be nice.
Yeah. Thank you so much for taking some time and talking with us. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Okay.
You're welcome. Okay, take care.
Bye-bye.